In the year 2247, humanity had reached new heights. Earth was no longer just a planet struggling to survive. It had become a beacon of hope and progress in the galaxy. Thanks to centuries of scientific breakthroughs, humans had built powerful ships capable of traveling across vast distances in space. These ships were part of Earth's battle fleet, a force created not for war but for exploration and peacekeeping. The leader of this fleet was Admiral Kyung-Soo Lee, a man known for his calm demeanor and sharp mind. He had spent most of his life serving humanity, and under his command, Earth's fleet had grown stronger with each passing year. His crew consisted of some of the brightest minds and bravest souls. Among them was Captain Hyun-Woo Kim, a tactical genius who could think 10 steps ahead in any situation. Then there was Lieutenant Suman Choi, an engineer whose hands worked magic when it came to fixing even the most complex machines. And finally, Dr. Yuna Lee, a xenobiologist fascinated by alien life forms, always eager to learn about the unknown. On one quiet day, while patrolling near the edge of the Milky Way, something unusual happened. A faint signal came through the void of space, breaking the silence that usually surrounded deep space missions. At first, the crew thought it might be interference or static caused by cosmic radiation, but as they listened closer, they realized it wasn't random noise. It was a message, a distress call. The signal was weak, almost like a whisper carried on the wind. It repeated over and over again, though none of the crew could understand what it said at first. The language was foreign, unlike anything they had ever heard before. Admiral Kyung-Soo ordered Ji-eun Park, the fleet's linguist, to analyze the transmission immediately. Ji-eun was young but incredibly talented. She had studied dozens of languages during her training and had a knack for deciphering patterns in unfamiliar tongues. For hours, Ji-eun worked tirelessly, piecing together fragments of the message. Slowly, words began to emerge. Help. Invaders. Planet burning, she whispered aloud as she wrote down her findings. By the time she finished decoding enough of the message, the meaning became clear. Someone, or something, was calling out for assistance. Their world was under attack, and they needed help desperately. Along with the message, the signal contained coordinates pointing to a distant star system called Lysera 9. This system was far beyond Earth's usual patrol routes, located near the outer rim of the galaxy where few human ships dared to venture. When Ji-eun shared her discovery with Admiral Kyung-Soo, he called an emergency meeting aboard the flagship Eos. The senior officers gathered in the command center, their faces serious as Kyung-Soo explained the situation. "We've received a distress call," Kyung-Soo said, his voice steady but firm. "A planet is being destroyed, and its people are asking for our help. We don't know who sent the signal or what kind of danger we're walking into, but we can't ignore it." Some members of the crew expressed concern. They reminded Kyung-Soo that Earth's fleet was designed for defense and exploration, not combat. Going to Lysera 9 could mean putting themselves in harm's way against enemies they knew nothing about. Others argued that helping those in need was exactly why the fleet existed. Humanity had always stood for compassion and unity, and now was the time to prove it. After much debate, Kyung-Soo made his decision. "We go," he declared. "If there's even a chance we can save lives, we have to take it. Prepare the fleet. We leave within the hour." As orders were given and preparations began, the crew felt a mix of excitement and fear. They didn't know what awaited them at Lysera 9, but they trusted their leaders and believed in their mission. Captain Hyun-Woo reviewed tactical plans, ensuring every ship was ready for any scenario. Lieutenant Suman double-checked the engines and weapons systems, making sure nothing would fail during the journey. Dr. Yuna packed her research equipment, hoping to gather data on whatever alien species they might encounter. Meanwhile, Ji-eun continued studying the distress signal, trying to extract more information. She couldn't shake the feeling that the message carried a sense of urgency, as if time was running out for whoever had sent it. Her heart ached for the unknown people pleading for help, and she vowed to do everything she could to assist them. Finally, the fleet was ready. 12 sleek warships, each bristling with advanced technology, formed a tight formation around the Eos. As the engines roared to life, the ships accelerated into hyperspace, leaving behind the familiar stars of the Milky Way. Ahead lay the unknown, a dangerous journey to answer a desperate cry for help. During the voyage, the crew prepared themselves mentally and physically. Training exercises kept everyone sharp, while discussions about possible scenarios helped them anticipate challenges. Despite the uncertainty, morale remained high. The idea of representing Earth and standing up for those in need filled the crew with pride. Days passed, and soon the fleet approached Lizera 9. As the ships exited hyperspace, the sight that greeted them was horrifying. The planet below was scarred and broken, its once beautiful surface now covered in ash and flames. Thick clouds of smoke choked the atmosphere, making it difficult to see clearly. From orbit, the destruction looked absolute. Admiral Kyung-soo ordered scanners to sweep the area for signs of life. To everyone's relief, faint readings indicated that some survivors still clung to existence beneath the ruins. Communication attempts yielded no response, so landing parties were organized to investigate further. Armed with protective gear and supplies, teams descended to the surface, ready to face whatever awaited them. What they found was both heartbreaking and inspiring. In underground bunkers, they discovered groups of survivors huddled together, their eyes filled with fear and exhaustion. The aliens introduced themselves as the Veilans, a peaceful species who had lived harmoniously with their environment until the invaders arrived. Through Ji-Yun's translation efforts, the crew learned that the attackers called themselves the Zorathians, a ruthless race bent on conquest and resource extraction. The Veilans described how the Zorathians had descended upon their world without warning, destroying everything in their path. Entire cities were reduced to rubble, forests burned to cinders, and rivers poisoned beyond repair. Those who tried to resist were slaughtered mercilessly. Now only a handful of Veilans remained, hiding in makeshift shelters and praying for salvation. Trellis, the leader of the survivors, pleaded with Admiral Kyung-soo for help. "Please," he said, his voice trembling, "if you do not stop them, they will move on to other worlds. No one will be safe." Kyung-soo nodded solemnly. He knew the gravity of the situation and the responsibility resting on his shoulders. Earth's fleet had come to answer a call for help, and now it was time to act. But as he looked around at the devastated landscape and heard the stories of suffering, he couldn't help but wonder if they were truly prepared for what lay ahead. Little did they know, their arrival at Lizera 9 was only the beginning of a journey that would test their courage, ingenuity, and resolve. The galaxy watched silently, waiting to see if humanity would rise to the challenge or falter under the weight of its own ideals. The Earth's battle fleet hovered above the shattered remains of Lizera 9, a planet that had once been a thriving paradise but was now reduced to a wasteland. Admiral Kyung-soo Lee stood on the bridge of the flagship Eos, his eyes fixed on the view screen as it displayed the horrifying sight below. The surface was scorched and barren, with rivers of molten rock cutting through fields of ash. Thick clouds of toxic smoke swirled in the atmosphere, blocking out the light of the distant sun. It was a scene of utter devastation, one that left even the most hardened members of the crew speechless. Despite the grim surroundings, Admiral Kyung-soo remained focused. He knew they couldn't afford to dwell on the destruction. They had a mission to complete. The first step was to locate survivors and gather more information about the invaders. Scanners swept the area, searching for signs of life. After several tense minutes, faint signals began to appear on the monitors, indicating pockets of activity beneath the surface. These readings suggested that some Veilans, the planet's native inhabitants, were still alive, hiding in underground bunkers. Kyung-soo ordered landing parties to prepare for descent. The teams consisted of soldiers, engineers, medics, and scientists, each chosen for their specific skills. Captain Hyunwoo Kim led one of the teams, ensuring they were equipped with protective gear to withstand the harsh environment. Lieutenant Suman Choi accompanied them, ready to repair any damaged equipment or structures they might encounter. Dr. Yuna Lee brought her research tools, eager to study the Veilans and learn more about their biology and culture. Ji-Yeon Park, the linguist, carried translation devices to help communicate with the survivors. As the landing shuttles descended through the thick clouds of smoke, the crew braced themselves for what they might find. When they touched down on the surface, the air was suffocating. filled with the acrid smell of burned vegetation and chemicals. The ground was hot beneath their boots, and the sky above glowed an eerie orange. It felt like stepping into a nightmare. Guided by the scanner readings, the teams made their way toward the nearest bunker. The entrance was hidden beneath piles of rubble, partially collapsed from the relentless attacks. Engineers worked quickly to clear the debris, using heavy machinery to uncover the steel door leading inside. Once it was open, the team cautiously entered the dimly lit corridor beyond. The bunker was cramped and poorly lit, but it was alive with movement. Dozens of Vaylans huddled together in small groups, their faces gaunt and weary. They looked up at the newcomers with wide, fearful eyes, unsure whether these strange beings were friends or foes. Trellis, the leader of the survivors, stepped forward hesitantly. His skin was pale gray, his large, almond-shaped eyes reflecting both exhaustion and hope. Ji-un activated her translation device, attempting to establish communication. "We are here to help," she said slowly, her voice calm and reassuring. "We received your distress call." Trellis listened intently, his expression softening as he processed her words. Through the translator, he explained their plight. The Zorathians, a ruthless alien race, had arrived unexpectedly and launched a brutal assault on Lysera 9. Their goal was simple: strip the planet of its resources and leave nothing behind. The Vaylans, who valued peace and harmony with nature, were unprepared for such aggression. Many had perished in the initial attacks, while others fled to underground shelters to escape the carnage. "They came without warning," Trellis continued, his voice trembling with anger and sorrow. "They destroyed our cities, poisoned our rivers, and burned our forests. Those who resisted were killed. Now, only a few of us remain." Admiral Kyung-soo listened carefully, his jaw tightening as he absorbed the details. The Vaylans' story painted a picture of merciless invaders driven by greed and conquest. But there was another piece of information that caught his attention. According to Trellis, the Zorathians weren't just content with destroying Lysera 9, they planned to move on to other planets, repeating the same cycle of destruction wherever they went. "They have bases on one of our moons," Trellis added, pointing to a holographic map projected by one of the bunker's surviving systems. "That is where they control their operations. If you want to stop them, you must strike there." Kyung-soo nodded thoughtfully. Attacking the Zorathian base would be risky, but it seemed like the best course of action. Before making a decision, however, he needed more intelligence. He ordered reconnaissance missions to scout the moon and gather data on the enemy's defenses. Captain Hyun-woo volunteered to lead the operation, knowing how crucial this information would be. Under cover of darkness, Hyun-woo and his team boarded stealth shuttles and set off for the moon. As they approached, the landscape became clearer, a desolate expanse dotted with towering machines and sprawling mining facilities. Automated drones patrolled the area, their insect-like forms glinting in the dim light. In the distance, massive structures loomed, housing factories and command centers. Hyun-woo guided his team to a secluded landing site, far from the main installations. From there, they moved on foot, using cloaking devices to avoid detection. The closer they got to the base, the more apparent the scale of the Zorathians' operation became. Enormous drills bored into the moon's crust, extracting valuable minerals and resources. Conveyor belts transported raw materials to processing plants, where they were refined and loaded onto cargo ships. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter, their weapons glowing ominously. The team split up to cover more ground. Hyun-woo stayed near the center of the base, sneaking closer to the command hub. Along the way, he planted surveillance drones to gather real-time data. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Sumin examined the machinery, taking note of its design and functionality. She whispered updates to the rest of the team, describing how the technology worked and identifying potential weaknesses. Dr. Yuna observed the Zorathians themselves, studying their behavior and physical characteristics. They were tall and insectoid, with chitinous exoskeletons that shimmered like polished metal. Their movements were precise and mechanical, suggesting a high level of coordination and discipline. Despite their intimidating appearance, Yuna noticed something intriguing: small cracks in their armor near the joints. This could be a vulnerability, she realized, if exploited correctly. After several hours of careful observation, the team regrouped and returned to the shuttles. Back aboard the EOS, they presented their findings to Admiral Kyung-soo. The data painted a daunting picture. The Zorathians were well-armed and heavily fortified, with advanced technology that rivaled Earth's own. However, the reconnaissance mission also revealed critical flaws in their defenses. For instance, the automated drones relied on centralized networks, meaning a targeted EMP attack could disable large portions of their forces. Additionally, the cracks in their armor provided a possible advantage in close combat. Kyung-soo called another meeting with his senior officers to discuss strategy. The mood in the room was tense but determined. Everyone understood the stakes. If they failed, not only would Lysera 9 be lost forever, but countless other worlds would fall victim to the Zorathians' greed. Yet, despite the challenges ahead, no one doubted the importance of their mission. "We've seen what they're capable of," Kyung-soo said, addressing the group. "But we've also found their weaknesses. With careful planning and teamwork, I believe we can take them down." Captain Hyun-woo outlined a plan of attack, proposing a multi-pronged approach. First, they would launch an EMP strike to cripple the Zorathians' drone network. Then, fighter squadrons would engage the enemy, ships in space, drawing their attention away from the ground forces. Finally, ground teams would infiltrate the base, disabling key systems and sabotaging the mining operations. Lieutenant Suman assured everyone that the fleet's engineers were already modifying the EMP missiles to maximize their effectiveness. Dr. Yuna suggested equipping the Marines with specialized weapons designed to exploit the cracks in the Zorathians' armor. Ji-yoon promised to continue refining the translation devices, ensuring smooth communication between humans and Valans throughout the mission. As the meeting concluded, Kyung-soo addressed the entire crew over the ship's intercom. "We came here to answer a cry for help," he said, his voice steady and resolute. "Now, it's time to show the galaxy what humanity stands for. Together, we will fight for justice, for peace, and for the survival of innocent lives. Let's make Earth proud," the crew responded with cheers, their spirits lifted by the Admiral's words. Though fear lingered in the corners of their minds, they pushed it aside, focusing instead on the task at hand. Preparations began immediately, with everyone working tirelessly to ensure the fleet was ready for battle. Weapons were calibrated, shields reinforced, and supplies distributed. Pilots ran simulations, honing their skills for the dogfights to come. Engineers double-checked every system, leaving nothing to chance. Meanwhile, the Valans watched from their bunkers, their hearts filled with gratitude and hope. Trellis spoke to Admiral Kyung-soo one last time before the fleet departed for the moon. "You have given us a second chance," he said, bowing deeply. "May the stars guide you to victory." With the coordinates locked in and the engines roaring to life, the Earth's battle fleet set course for the Zorathian base. The Earth's battle fleet approached the Zorathian moon with precision and stealth. Admiral Kyung-soo Lee sat in the command chair aboard the flagship EOS, his hands gripping the armrests as he watched the view screen. The massive mining operations on the moon's surface loomed larger with each passing second. Automated factories churned out weapons, conveyor belts carried raw materials, and swarms of insectoid drones patrolled the area like mechanical sentinels. It was a fortress of industry and destruction, designed to crush any resistance. Captain Hyun-woo Kim stood nearby, studying tactical readouts as the fleet prepared for its assault. Lieutenant Suman Choi monitored the ship's systems, ensuring every piece of equipment functioned flawlessly. Dr. Yuna Lee reviewed her notes on the Zorathians' biology, ready to share insights that could give the humans an edge in combat. Ji-yoon Park tested the translation devices one last time, just in case they encountered more survivors or needed to intercept enemy communications. Everyone had a role to play, and everyone understood the stakes. The plan was clear. The first phase of the attack would focus on disabling the Zorathians' drone network using EMP missiles. Without their automated defenses, the invaders would be vulnerable to direct assaults. Once the drones were neutralized, fighter squadrons led by ace pilot Minji Ro would engage the enemy ships in space, drawing their attention away from the ground forces. Meanwhile, ground teams would infiltrate the base, targeting key systems to disrupt mining operations and sabotage the Zorathians' command structure. Admiral Kyung-soo gave the order. "Launch the EMP missiles." Suman activated the launch sequence, her fingers flying across the control panel. A dozen sleek projectiles streaked toward the moon's surface, glowing faintly against the dark expanse of space. As they struck their targets, bursts of electromagnetic energy rippled outward, engulfing the area in a blinding flash. For a moment, everything went silent. Then, chaos erupted. The Zorathian drones froze mid-flight, their circuits fried by the EMP blasts. Conveyor belts ground to a halt, leaving piles of unprocessed minerals scattered across the landscape. Automated turrets slumped lifelessly, their once menacing barrels now motionless. The entire operation seemed to collapse under the weight of Earth's technological counterattack, but the victory was short-lived. The Zorathians weren't about to surrender so easily. Within moments, alarms blared across the base, and reinforcements poured out of hidden hangars. Massive warships descended from orbit, their hulls bristling with weapons. The insectoid warriors themselves emerged from underground bunkers, armed with plasma rifles and glowing blades. They moved with terrifying speed and precision, surrounding the human forces with overwhelming numbers. "Enemy ships incoming!" shouted a radar operator aboard the EOS. Kyung-soo clenched his jaw. "Prepare for battle. All pilots, scramble!" Minji-Ro was already in her cockpit, strapping herself into her fighter jet. She revved the engines and launched from the hangar bay, joining dozens of other pilots as they formed tight formations in the sky. Her squadron sped toward the Zorathian ships, dodging volleys of energy beams and returning fire with plasma cannons. Explosions lit up the void as fighters from both sides clashed in a deadly dance of speed and skill. Back on the surface, Captain Hyun-woo led the ground teams through the chaos. Armed with rifles and explosives, they fought their way past hordes of Zorathian soldiers. The insectoid aliens proved to be formidable opponents, their exoskeletons resistant to most conventional weapons. But thanks to Dr. Yuna's research, the Marines had been equipped with specialized rounds designed to penetrate the cracks in the Zorathians' armor. Each shot landed with devastating accuracy, sending the creatures stumbling backward before collapsing. Hyun-woo's team pushed deeper into the base, heading straight for the central control hub. Along the way, they encountered heavy resistance. Automated defenses that had survived the EMP strike opened fire, forcing the humans to take cover behind debris and abandoned machinery. Soamin worked tirelessly to disable these systems remotely, hacking into the Zorathians' networks and shutting them down one by one. Her efforts gave the team precious seconds to advance, but the cost was high. Several soldiers fell during the firefight, their sacrifices etched into the memories of those who survived. Inside the control hub, Hyun-woo found what he was looking for: a towering console filled with blinking lights and holographic displays. This was the heart of the Zorathians' operation, the nerve center controlling everything from mining drills to defensive turrets. With Ji-Yun's help, he deciphered the alien language scrawled across the screens and began inputting commands to sabotage the system. Alarms wailed as the machinery sputtered and died, throwing the entire base into disarray. Meanwhile, Admiral Kyung-soo made a bold decision aboard the EOS. Realizing that the Zorathians wouldn't retreat until their leadership was destroyed, he ordered the flagship to lead a kamikaze-style charge directly into the enemy command center. The move was risky, but it caught the Zorathians off guard. Their ships scrambled to intercept the EOS, leaving gaps in their formation that the rest of Earth's fleet exploited. As the EOS barreled toward the command center, Kyung-soo addressed his crew over the intercom. "This is our chance to end this fight. Stay focused and trust in your training. We will prevail." The impact shook the entire moon. The EOS rammed into the command center with enough force to shatter its outer walls, creating a breach large enough for ground teams to storm inside. Hyun-woo seized the opportunity, leading his soldiers through the wreckage and into the inner sanctum of the Zorathian base. There, they faced their toughest challenge yet: a battalion of elite Zorathian warriors guarding the final stronghold. The battle was fierce. Plasma bolts ricocheted off metal walls as humans and Zorathians exchanged fire in close quarters. Dr. Yuna joined the fray, wielding a modified rifle that fired pulses capable of cracking even the toughest exoskeletons. Her scientific expertise turned her into an unexpected warrior, striking fear into the hearts of the Zorathians who underestimated her. One by one, the insectoid soldiers fell, their bodies littering the corridor. At last, Hyunwoo reached the core chamber. Inside, a pulsating orb of energy powered the entire facility. He planted explosives around the room, setting a timer to ensure there was enough time for his team to escape. As the countdown began, the remaining Zorathians launched a desperate counterattack, determined to protect their prize. The humans fought back with everything they had, refusing to let their mission fail at the final hurdle. With seconds to spare, Hyunwoo and his team evacuated the chamber. Behind them, the explosives detonated, unleashing a shock wave that tore through the base. Lights flickered and died, machinery crumbled, and the hum of activity faded into silence. The Zorathian presence on the moon had been neutralized. Back aboard the Eos, Admiral Kyung-soo surveyed the damage. The flagship had sustained significant injuries during the kamikaze maneuver, but it remained operational. The rest of the fleet regrouped around it, battered but victorious. Casualties had been high, too high, but the sacrifice had not been in vain. The Zorathians' grip on Lysera 9 had been broken. As the dust settled, the surviving Veilons emerged from their bunkers, their faces filled with awe and gratitude. Trellis approached Admiral Kyung-soo, tears streaming down his gray cheeks. "You have saved us," he said, bowing deeply. "We owe you everything." Kyung-soo placed a hand on Trellis's shoulder. "We came here because it was the right thing to do. Together we can rebuild what has been lost." The victory was bittersweet. The crew mourned the loss of their comrades, knowing that their names would forever be remembered among the stars. But they also felt a sense of pride. Against all odds, they had succeeded where others might have faltered. They had proven that humanity was capable of standing up to tyranny, no matter how daunting the challenge. For now, the immediate threat had been eliminated. But Kyung-soo knew the fight wasn't over. The Zorathians still existed elsewhere, their empire stretching across countless worlds. If humanity wanted to secure peace for the galaxy, they would need to strike at the source, the Zorathian homeworld itself. As the fleet prepared to return to Lysera 9 and regroup, Admiral Kyung-soo gazed at the horizon. Somewhere beyond the stars lay the next chapter of their journey, and though the road ahead would be long and perilous, he believed in his crew and in the ideals they represented. For the first time in history, Earth had answered a distress call from another species. Now it was time to take the fight to the enemy and show the galaxy that humanity stood united against oppression. The victory on the Zorathian moon was hard won, but it came at a great cost. The Earth's battle fleet had suffered heavy losses, both in ships and lives. The flagship Eos bore scars from the kamikaze maneuver, its hull patched together with temporary repairs. Many of the crew members were injured or exhausted, their spirits weighed down by grief for fallen comrades. Yet, despite the toll, there was a sense of purpose that kept them moving forward. They had stopped the invaders on Lysera 9, but everyone knew this was only the beginning. Admiral Kyung-soo Lee stood on the bridge of the Eos, staring out at the wreckage of the Zorathian base. His mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead. Neutralizing the threat on the moon was a crucial step, but the Zorathians were far from defeated. Their homeworld remained untouched, their empire still intact. If humanity wanted to ensure lasting peace for the galaxy, they would need to strike at the heart of the enemy's power. Captain Hyunwoo Kim approached Kyung-soo, his face lined with fatigue, but his eyes sharp with determination. "Sir, we've secured the area. The Veilons are safe for now, but we can't stay here forever. What's our next move?" Kyung-soo turned to face him. "We take the fight to them," he said firmly. "If we want to end this once and for all, we need to hit the Zorathian homeworld. But we can't do it alone." Hyunwoo nodded. "The Veilons. They'll help us." Kyung-soo agreed. The Veilons had already shown their gratitude for Earth's intervention, but Kyung-soo believed they could offer more than words of thanks. Their knowledge of the Zorathians, and potentially their technology, could be the key to turning the tide in humanity's favor. Back on Lysera 9, Trellis, the leader of the Veilons, welcomed Admiral Kyung-soo and his senior officers into one of the few remaining underground bunkers. The air inside was cool and damp, a stark contrast to the fiery wasteland above. Trellis sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by other elders, while Kyung-soo and his team took seats opposite them. Ji-Yoon Park activated her translation device, ensuring clear communication between the two species. "We owe you our lives," Trellis began, his voice filled with emotion. "You came when no one else would. You risked everything to save us." Kyung-soo inclined his head respectfully. "We did what was right, but the fight isn't over yet. The Zorathians will return if we don't stop them at their source, their homeworld." Trellis's expression darkened. "Their homeworld is heavily fortified. Even with your advanced technology, reaching it will be nearly impossible." "We're aware of the risks," Kyung-soo replied. "But we have no choice. If we don't act now, they'll continue destroying planets like yours. We need your help." Trellis exchanged glances with the other elders before speaking again. "There may be a way. Deep beneath our planet lies an ancient vault containing relics from our ancestors. These relics hold technologies far beyond what exists today. Among them are cloaking devices capable of rendering entire fleets invisible, and resonators that can destabilize planetary cores. If you can access these relics, they might give you the edge you need." Kyung-soo's eyes widened slightly. Such technology could indeed make the difference between success and failure. "Can you guide us to this vault?" he asked. Trellis hesitated. "It is dangerous. The path is treacherous and many traps guard the relics. But if you are willing to risk it, we will lead you there." Without hesitation, Kyung-soo accepted the offer. "We'll do whatever it takes." The journey to the ancient vault was arduous. Lieutenant Suman Choi led a team of engineers and Veylan guides through winding tunnels carved into the bedrock of Lysera 9. The walls were slick with moisture, and strange bioluminescent fungi cast eerie shadows on the ground. Every step echoed ominously, as if the earth itself was warning them to turn back. As they ventured deeper, the group encountered numerous obstacles. Collapsed passages forced them to dig through rubble, while hidden traps triggered bursts of energy that narrowly missed their targets. At one point, they faced a massive stone door covered in intricate carvings. Trellis explained that it required a specific sequence of symbols to unlock. Ji-Yoon worked closely with the Veylons, deciphering the alien script and inputting the correct pattern. With a low rumble, the door slid open, revealing the treasure trove within. The vault was breathtaking. Rows of glowing artifacts lined the chamber, each pulsating with an otherworldly energy. Cloaking devices shaped like crystalline orbs floated silently in mid-air, while resonators resembling jagged metal spires hummed softly. Dr. Yuna Lee examined the items with fascination, marveling at the ingenuity of the Veylon's ancestors. "This is incredible," she whispered, her voice tinged with awe. "With this technology, we could level the playing field against the Zorathians." Suman immediately set to work integrating the relics into Earth's ships. The cloaking devices were installed first, allowing the fleet to become virtually invisible to enemy sensors. Meanwhile, the resonators were carefully mounted onto specially designed carriers, ready to unleash their destructive potential during the final assault. As preparations continued, morale among the crew slowly improved, knowing they had powerful allies in the Veylons and access to ancient technology gave them renewed hope. Training exercises became more intense, with pilots practicing stealth maneuvers and Marines drilling for close-quarters combat. Everyone understood that the upcoming mission would be their greatest challenge yet, but they were determined to succeed. Before departing for the Zorathian homeworld, Admiral Kyung-soo gathered the crew aboard the Eos for one final address. Standing tall on the command deck, he looked out at the faces of men and women who had sacrificed so much already. Some bore bandages from injuries sustained during the previous battles, while others carried the weight of loss in their eyes. Despite their hardships, they stood united, ready to follow their leader into the unknown. Today, we embark on a mission that will define not just our future, but the future of the entire galaxy, Kyung-soo began, his voice steady and commanding. The Zorathians have brought destruction to countless worlds, leaving death and despair in their wake. But we will not let them continue. We will strike at the heart of their empire and show them that tyranny has no place in this universe. He paused, letting his words sink in. This won't be easy. We'll face overwhelming odds, and some of us may not return. But I know each and every one of you will fight with courage and honor. Together, we will bring justice to those who have suffered under the Zorathians' cruelty." A cheer erupted from the crew, echoing throughout the ship. For the first time in days, smiles broke through the somber expressions. They were ready, not just to fight, but to win. The journey to the Zorathian homeworld was tense but focused. Thanks to the cloaking devices, the fleet slipped past enemy patrols undetected, arriving at their destination without incident. From orbit, the planet below was a sprawling hive of activity. Massive cities stretched across the surface, interconnected by networks of highways and railways. Factories belched smoke into the atmosphere, while military installations dotted the landscape like scars. Admiral Kyung-soo studied the view screen intently. "This is it," he said. "Our chance to end this war. Prepare for deployment." The plan was simple, but daring. Using the cloaking devices, the fleet would infiltrate the planet's defenses and position themselves near critical targets. Once in place, they would activate the resonators, destabilizing the core of the Zorathian capital and crippling their ability to wage war. Simultaneously, fighter squadrons would engage any remaining forces in space, preventing reinforcements from reaching the surface. As the operation began, Captain Hyenwoo led ground teams onto the planet, navigating through dense urban areas toward their objectives. The cloaking devices allowed them to move unseen, avoiding detection by patrols and surveillance drones. Along the way, they planted explosives at key locations, ensuring maximum disruption when the time came. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Soo-min monitored the resonators remotely, making final adjustments to ensure they functioned properly. Her hands trembled slightly as she worked, knowing the fate of the mission, and possibly the galaxy, rested on her shoulders. But she pushed aside her nerves, focusing solely on the task at hand. Dr. Yuna accompanied one of the ground teams, providing real-time analysis of the Zorathians' movements. Her insights proved invaluable, helping the humans anticipate enemy actions and adapt accordingly. Though she had never imagined herself in such a dangerous role, she embraced it fully, driven by a desire to protect innocent lives. Finally, the moment arrived. Admiral Kyung-soo gave the order to activate the resonators. A deep rumble shook the planet as waves of energy radiated outward, destabilizing the core of the Zorathian capital. Buildings crumbled, roads collapsed, and panic spread like wildfire among the population. In space, Minji-ro led the fighter squadrons in fierce dogfights, keeping enemy ships occupied and unable to interfere. Through it all, the humans fought with unwavering resolve. They knew the risks, they felt the fear, but they refused to falter. This was their moment to prove that humanity stood for something greater than itself, a beacon of hope in a galaxy plagued by darkness. And as the dust settled and the Zorathian Empire began to crumble, Admiral Kyung-soo allowed himself a small smile. The hardest part was over. Now, it was time to see what kind of legacy they would leave behind. The assault on the Zorathian homeworld was a spectacle of chaos and destruction, but it was also a testament to humanity's ingenuity and determination. As the resonators destabilized the planet's core, shockwaves rippled across the surface, tearing apart cities and shattering the foundations of the Zorathians' empire. The once mighty structures that symbolized their dominance crumbled into dust, leaving behind a landscape of ruin. From orbit, the Earth's battle fleet watched as the enemy's stronghold fell piece by piece, its collapse echoing through the void of space. Captain Hyunwoo Kim led the ground teams with precision, ensuring every objective was met before retreating to safety. The cloaking devices had allowed them to move undetected, planting explosives at key locations throughout the capital. Now, as explosions erupted in synchronized bursts, the Zorathians' defenses collapsed entirely. Their automated systems failed, their communication networks went dark, and their military forces scrambled in disarray. The insectoid warriors, so disciplined and relentless in previous battles, were now overwhelmed by panic and confusion. In space, Minji-ro and her squadron of fighter pilots engaged the remaining Zorathian ships in fierce dogfights. The enemy fleet tried desperately to regroup and counterattack, but they were no match for the humans' superior tactics and technology. Plasma bolts streaked across the sky, lighting up the darkness with flashes of brilliant blue and red. One by one, the Zorathian vessels were destroyed, their burning husks drifting aimlessly in the void. Minji's sharp reflexes and fearless maneuvers earned her the nickname Shadow Dagger among her fellow pilots, a testament to her deadly efficiency in combat. Despite the success of the operation, the cost was immense. Many ships in Earth's fleet had been damaged or destroyed, and countless lives had been lost. Lieutenant Suman Choi worked tirelessly to keep the remaining vessels operational, patching up hull breaches and rerouting power to critical systems. Her hands trembled from exhaustion, but she refused to stop until every ship was ready to return home. Dr. Yuna Lee tended to the wounded, her heart heavy with grief for those who hadn't survived. Yet even in the face of such loss, there was a sense of pride among the crew. They had accomplished what seemed impossible. They had brought down the Zorathian Empire. As the final stages of the mission unfolded, Captain Hyunwoo received orders to lead a daring raid on the Zorathian citadel. Intelligence suggested that the Queen herself resided within the central fortress, orchestrating the war effort from behind impenetrable walls. If they could eliminate her, the Zorathians would lose their leader and any hope of organized resistance. Hyunwoo assembled a small team of elite soldiers, each handpicked for their skills and bravery. Armed with weapons enhanced by Velan technology, they prepared to infiltrate the heavily guarded structure. The journey to the citadel was perilous. Automated turrets lined the perimeter, firing indiscriminately at anything that moved. Hyunwoo's team relied on stealth and teamwork to navigate the labyrinthine corridors inside. At every turn, they encountered hordes of Zorathian warriors, their glowing blades clashing against human rifles in brutal close-quarters combat. Thanks to Dr. Yuna's research, the Marines knew exactly where to aim their shots, targeting the weak points in the aliens' exoskeletons. Each hit landed with devastating accuracy, sending the creatures stumbling backward before collapsing in defeat. Finally, after what felt like hours of relentless fighting, Hyunwoo and his team reached the throne room. The massive chamber was dimly lit, its walls adorned with jagged spires that reflected faint green light. In the center stood the Zorathian Queen, a towering figure clad in shimmering armor that pulsed with energy. Her presence was both awe-inspiring and terrifying, her 6 limbs poised for attack. Behind her, holographic displays flickered erratically, showing real-time updates of the destruction unfolding across the planet. Hyunwoo stepped forward, his weapon trained on the Queen. "Your reign ends here," he declared, his voice steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. The Queen responded with a guttural roar, lunging toward him with incredible speed. The battle that followed was intense, a clash of strength and strategy. Hyunwoo dodged her attacks with agility, firing precise shots at the cracks in her armor. His team provided cover fire, keeping the surrounding guards at bay while he focused on the Queen. With each blow, her movements grew slower, her defenses weakening. Finally, with a well-placed shot, Hyunwoo struck the killing blow, sending the Queen crashing to the ground. As the Queen's body lay motionless, the entire fortress began to shake violently. Without their leader, the Zorathian system spiraled, out of control, triggering a chain reaction that would soon consume the entire citadel. Hyunwoo ordered his team to retreat immediately, racing back through the collapsing corridors as alarms blared around them. They barely made it outside before the fortress imploded in a fiery explosion, sending a plume of smoke and debris high into the atmosphere. News of the Queen's death spread quickly, reaching the ears of the remaining Zorathian forces. Without a leader to guide them, their morale crumbled. Within hours, the invaders began surrendering en masse, their ships lowering shields and broadcasting messages of capitulation. Admiral Kyung-soo ordered his fleet to accept their surrender, ensuring that all prisoners were treated with dignity and respect. It was important to show the galaxy that humanity fought not out of hatred, but out of a desire for peace and justice. Back aboard the Eos, the crew celebrated their hard-fought victory. Exhausted but triumphant, they shared stories of their experiences during the mission, honoring the memories of those who had fallen. Admiral Kyung-soo addressed the entire fleet over the intercom, his voice filled with emotion. "Today we have achieved something remarkable. We have shown the galaxy that humanity stands united against oppression. Our actions will inspire others to rise up and fight for what is right." The Valens, too, rejoiced at the downfall of their tormentors. Traylus and the other survivors emerged from their bunkers, their faces radiant with gratitude. They gifted Earth's fleet advanced knowledge and resources, promising eternal friendship and cooperation. For the first time in years, hope returned to Lysera 9, as the Valons began rebuilding their shattered world with the help of their new allies. When the fleet finally returned to Earth, they were greeted as heroes. Cities across the globe erupted in celebration, with parades and ceremonies held in honor of the brave men and women who had saved the galaxy. Statues of Admiral Kyung-soo, Captain Hyun-woo, Lieutenant Sumin, Dr. Yuna, and Ji-eun Park were erected in public squares, serving as reminders of their courage and sacrifice. Schools taught the story of the Galactic Distress Call, inspiring future generations to follow in their footsteps. Years later, the legacy of the mission lived on. Humanity had proven itself not just as a species capable of exploration and innovation, but as a force for good in the universe. The alliance with the Valans opened doors to new friendships and partnerships, fostering unity among the stars. And though the scars of battle remained, both physical and emotional, the crew of the Eos carried with them the knowledge that they had made a difference. As Admiral Kyung-soo looked up at the night sky, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The galaxy was vast and full of mysteries, but he knew that humanity would continue to rise to the challenges ahead. Together, they had answered a cry for help, and in doing so, they had changed the course of history forever.